Title is The Democratic Deficit in Philippine Politics, a Perspective from a Concerned Citizen. I cannot speak like a political scientist, but at the same time, I've been trained to be one, and it's difficult to shed off that kind of training, much like when you are a military officer, you've been trained as a military officer, and you retire formally from the military when you reach the age of 56, or when your service is at a certain stage where you need to have compulsory retirement. They will never, ever become civilian because their training, their responses, their perspectives will always be shaped by the kind of professional training they obtain. Okay, so Philippine democracy, so-called, is 63 years old. This is counting from the time of independence from the United States in July 1946. For 14 years, between 1972 and the beginning of 1986, we were under what Marcos called constitutional authoritarianism, which is a euphemism for, martial law and dictatorship. But euphemisms are common in many regimes. For me, those 14 years are terribly, terribly important because they translate into 7 by-elections when we elected our local government and some of the members of the 2 houses of Congress. We did not elect during by-elections our president and our vice president. But if you think in terms of 4-year presidential elections, 14 years would be like 3 presidential elections and some. Imagine the lost opportunities that we had by way of political recruitment, by way of political education, by way of political participation. So I was so very concerned when martial law was declared. And the declaration of martial law was what turned me away from my original doctoral studies at Duke University in political philosophy, because I trained to become a diplomat. My basic degree is in foreign service and my MA is in in international relations, but I chose to be an academic. And I would not have been the kind of person that I am, the kind of people that inspire bright guys like Aris, if I did not do political philosophy. So I went to Duke. And I am a Duke University dropout, but I was not kicked out. I left voluntarily because I thought that martial law would have such long-term implications for political development in the Philippines that I needed to understand what it meant or what it would mean. So I abandoned my 5-chapter draft of a dissertation. It's supposed to be 7 chapters. I can't even remember what those chapters are. It's been so long ago. And I decided to go back to school. I really did not decide to go back to school. My husband challenged me by telling me that the reason why I did not want to go back to graduate school and finish the doctoral work is because I am not PhD material. So I said, oh yeah? And the rest is a story that I shared with the Fulbrighters that left the Philippines, including Aris, last year, in some kind of inspirational message. Earlier on, my seatmate, I think he comes from Camarines Sur, he said, you know, I Googled you and I looked at your CV, and I think that you know, you dropped out from Duke because of some kind of destiny. Well, earlier on when I spoke at GSU, I did say that my career has been guided by the Lord. Yeah. I would not be where I am today had martial law not been declared. I would be a doddering old lady doing political philosophy, and that would have been a career dead end in a third world country such as the Philippines, in a political science department such as my department. But getting into the military in politics, trying to understand what martial law implied for the long-term political development of the Philippines, got me into international security studies, the tension between democracy and development, well, of course, the IR is there, no? International relations is there, and then security sector reform, which is the new buzzword for managing the uniformed services properly so that you have transparent, effective, accountable uniformed services, namely the military, the police, the intelligence services, but managed by competent oversight institutions on the political side, assisted also by elements of civil society. So I remained relevant. I don't think I would have been spotted by whoever chose me to be a member of this advisory board on this armament, arms control, and international security under the aegis of the UN Secretary General, had I not been in security studies, had I not shifted from political philosophy to the military in politics. So I'm deeply grateful. This is why, and this can be documented, no? This can be documented, that this is why, because of the many opportunities that have been opened up to me as a senior professor, I have chosen to set up a small institute independent of the University of the Philippines, independent of the government, in order to do policy research and advocacy and provide the advice unsolicited in many instances to regional governments, to regional organizations, including the Philippine government. But as Aris pointed out, I'm better known outside the country than inside the country. They are amazed that I am a face that is not fully painted with military in politics, but other colorful security paints. They're amazed that I do these things, you know, because I was the face of the two commissions that investigated the failed coup against Mrs. Aquino in December of 1989, and the failed mutiny that was launched by the so-called Magdalo group in July of 2003 against President Arroyo. Come to think of it, our military organization and the people that arrested inside it do not undertake coup attempts against males. They only undertake coup attempts against females. So, I mean, it probably is coincidental, but I think it's very difficult for a military organization, especially in Asia, to recognize somebody that is not like them as their commander-in-chief. Maybe it's difficult. And in the case of Mrs. Aquino, it was a case of this woman in yellow that the military saw standing on the other side of the military barricades, protesting against the Marcos government since the assassination of Ninoy in 1983, was it? Yeah, in 1983. So it must have been difficult, and the woman who visited her husband in jail under tight security, I don't think the military was able to accept this and to realize that this woman could find it in her heart to forgive those who wronged against her and her husband, because now she was president of the Republic of the Philippines. But that's a long story that needs another time in telling. Now, for backgrounder, I mean, first of all, I would like to say that there are many, many things wrong with Philippine democracy. It's elite democracy, they say. It's the democracy of the oligarchy. Well, the Philippine democracy is 63 years old minus 14. I am not good in numbers. I tell my students when I see numbers,